Hello everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make a custom link tracker in WorkflowDog. This is a common marketing task and building it in WorkflowDog is super simple and super customizable. So let's jump into it. This is the workflow we're going to be building today. It's super simple. It's triggered when a request is received at a URL, and we basically just pick out some information from the URL, redirect the user to it, and then insert the information into our Google Sheet for tracking. So you can see that Google Sheet here. This is what the results look like. We're taking the current date, the source from the URL, and the actual URL that the user was redirected to, and now we have all this information logged. Okay, so let me show you this thing in action. I've also just created another sheet here that generates our tracking link for us. Super simple. We just grab the URL from our workflow here, and then we have to add some parameters to it. So we have the link that we want to redirect to, the source parameter, which just tells us where the person came from, and then this Google Sheet formula generates that link for us. And so that URL parameter and source parameter corresponds to those parameters that we're picking out here in the workflow. Okay, so to use this thing, what we do is we just go and copy the destination link and we paste that in here, and then we set whatever we want the source to be. I can say test, and then we just copy this generated link, and this is the link that we can give to people or post or whatever. So if we go to that link, we get redirected to the video, and then check our spreadsheet here, and we get a new entry. Okay, so let me show you how to build this. So I'm in WorkflowDog here. I'll start by creating a new workflow, and I'll pick the URL trigger, create that. Great, I'll enable it and clear out our canvas here. And so the first thing we're going to do is switch the query parameters to select the items individually. That means we can go and pick out specific query parameters here, which I'm going to start with just URL. Then I'll go ahead and find the redirect action, and I'll plug that straight in there. Great, so right off the rip, what this is going to do is automatically redirect our user to the desired URL when we load this workflow. So that part's working. It's super easy. Next, we just want to add the tracking into the Google Sheet. So how we're going to do that is search for the insert table row action here. We'll pull that up. Next, we need to plug in the spreadsheet URL. So I'll add a text action and copy the spreadsheet URL and paste that in and connect that up. We also need the sheet name. So I'll add another text action, and that is called logs. I'll plug that in. The values, we're going to provide the entire object at once because we're going to build it up down here. So I'll look for the build object action. And so this is going to combine several properties into one object that we can plug straight into the values of our Google Sheet row. Okay, so the properties here are going to correspond to the column names that we have in Google Sheets. So we'll do date, source, and URL. The order doesn't matter. So for the date, I'll go ahead and grab the current date and time. That's easy. We plug that straight in. For the URL, we go and plug that straight in. And then for the source, we can go and select that out of the query parameters as well and plug that straight in. Next, we just have to plug that built object into our values here and make sure we select an account. And now that URL will be tracked. To double check this, we can go ahead and copy the workflow URL, and I'll swap that out in my little link maker calculator here, paste that in there, and so now we'll be using this new workflow that we just created. So let's test this out by copying that link and going to it in a new tab. And look at that. We can look at the Google Sheet and see that we did just get a new entry there, and we got redirected. So that's working already. The next thing I did in the version that I showed you in the beginning of this video was I just added a little check here using an AND action to make sure that the URL and the source were both included in the URL before we redirect. All that does is just make sure that if somebody accesses this link directly, that it doesn't go adding a row to our Google Sheet or redirecting them without the required information. Totally cosmetic, but it's just a nice thing to add. So we can go ahead and do that and add a condition to here as well, plug that result in. And so now both the redirect and this object generation here that creates the object for our row are both completely conditional based on whether the URL and the source are both included. Now, if we were to go to the URL without adding any parameters to it, we don't get a row in our sheet. Okay, now let's say we wanted to take this further and track a new parameter besides source. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new parameter called name, and then make a corresponding property on our row object here called name, and plug that straight in. Then all we have to do is go to our Google Sheet and add a new column, call that name, and now if I jump in and grab our URL, I can go to it and add a new parameter called name here and type Zach. If I go to it, we get redirected just like we expect, and go back to the sheet, and we can see we got a new row with that new parameter added. If you're interested in building something like this, you can go to workflow.dog to get started. Thank you for watching.